Hi, everyone. This is Coach Val Fiott. Welcome back to the podcast. So, today we are not just talking about holistic health and health and wellness, but we're talking more specifically about obesity as it pertains to COVID weight gain or pandemic weight gain, you could say. I see a lot of people are searching on YouTube for this very thing. They're looking for a solution to their pandemic weight gain. So, today we're going to talk about two particular things. We'll talk about the physiology involved, but also let's talk about the psychology as well, because I think the psychology plays a big role here. After all, there's a reason why we're not just searching for weight gain and the need for weight loss, but we're searching specifically with the words COVID and pandemic. So that tells me that there's something psychological going on as well. So we're going to address all that in a moment. First, if you don't mind, please click like so more people see this video, and please subscribe if you have not already. I want you to get more great videos like this. I've got a ton more content for you coming each and every day. So that said, let's go ahead and dive right into obesity as it pertains to COVID weight gain and pandemic weight gain. So the lockdowns now were about 4 years ago when they first began. In some areas, they went on for about a year. In other areas, they went on a lot more than that. So at this stage of the game, we have had the gyms and the trails and the beaches and everything reopened now for at least a couple of years. That doesn't necessarily mean that you've been able yet to psychologically work yourself back into a proper program. It doesn't necessarily mean that you even really have the know-how as to how to lose this new weight. Because I know for a lot of you, you were already in really good shape prior to the pandemic and prior to the lockdowns, and that you never really had to worry about calorie deficit and fat burning before because you'd maintained a very lean physique. And now, for many of you, for the very first time, you've got excess body fat and your workouts have to be totally different. And your progression from week to week and month to month also needs to be very different because you're no longer maintaining the level of fitness you used to have, but now you have to get that back. And that's a very different kind of conversation and a very different kind of science. So we're going to talk about the psychology. We're also going to talk about the physiology. Let's start here with the physiology. The first thing I want you to know is that even though you may have new body fat that you did not have before, the principles to burning it off are still going to be the same, right? Nothing's really different in terms of COVID weight gain versus any other kind of weight gain. We need a calorie deficit. I know there's a lot of talk on the internet that says you do not need a calorie deficit and you don't need to count calories. Well, just because something can sometimes be done, because you can sometimes lose body fat without necessarily counting your calories, your macros, your protein intake, your carbs, your fats, that you don't necessarily have to do that. And sometimes you can still be fairly successful. What we talk about in this podcast is the science of getting things done quickly, safely, and very efficiently. And I don't think it makes a lot of sense to guess your way through your calorie intake or to guess your way through your workouts. What makes a lot more sense and carries a much better safety profile is if we just really do it right, if we follow all the clinical guidelines that apply to your medical conditions and your current levels of fitness. If we apply all of that, then every minute of your exercise is going to be used right. It's going to pertain to your goals. It's going to build health and longevity. It's going to get the body fat off, and your nutrition will be on point as well. Whereas when people don't want to engage these kind of things, they're just, yeah, if you get lucky, you can still make things work fairly well for you, but you're still not going to maximize your time unless you're incorporating the guidelines. So what I'm saying is the physiology of this kind of weight loss is no different than any other. We need a calorie deficit. We need the right amount of proteins, carbs, and fats for your particular body. And the more precise you're willing to be in the management of those macronutrients, proteins, carbs, and fats, the more precise you're willing to be on a day-to-day basis, the quicker and the better you're going to get results. If you're someone who says, I don't want to count calories, I don't want to know how much protein I'm taking in, but I'm willing to just eat more protein and try to eat generally less food in general, it's probably going to be a step in the right direction for a little while, but it's generally and statistically not going to take you that far. You want to personalize. Think of your macros and your exercise prescription as throwing darts. Could you potentially throw a dart and hit the bullseye dead on if you were blindfolded? You could. Is it terribly likely? Probably not, unless you're really good at darts. So, or unless you poke little holes in the blindfold, perhaps. So that's the way you want to see exercise prescription and nutrition science as they pertain to obesity and weight loss and weight management. Okay, and so now we've got to think about the psychology behind all this, the psychological component. Let's say that you are very stressed out, and let's say that in some way losing your fitness from the lockdowns and the COVID pandemic. Let's say that you're someone who's just you felt like you really had it all before, you were in great shape and you were really feeling good about your fitness, and now trying to get back to that level of desire for fitness. And the way you felt now seems like a struggle because perhaps now you feel like that's sort of in the past and you want to get back to it, but you feel like, gosh, that's gone. That was a few years ago. My new fitness level is so poor. How do I really feel good about gaining back the energy and the level of fitness and the rhythm that I was in, right? A lot of times people get into a rhythm, they have a certain workout partner, a certain gym, it's a certain time of day, and you feel good about all that, and that's part of your identity. And then when that gets taken away for years, it's really hard to get back to and feel good about. I know we've had a lot of clients feel that way. A lot of our clients at PPT did not feel good about coming back after they couldn't meet with us for so long. So I know this is a really hard thing for our psychology. Here's what I want to say to motivate you. It's only been a couple of years, right? It's been a couple of years since the end of the lockdowns. If you let a couple of years turn into 5 years, it's going to be a lot harder on your psychology and your physiology, your fat cells. The longer you have excess body fat, the harder it is to negate. 10 years from now, if you let these 2 or 3 years turn into 10, it's going to be even harder and you're going to be older, probably have a more toxic body. It's going to be harder and certainly harder on your psychology. So what I'm saying is this is the time to get serious and nip it in the bud. If you have weight gain from COVID, if you have pandemic weight gain, this is the time to get serious and say, I don't want to let another day go by. It's already been 2 or 3 years. Am I going to let this problem be a short-term problem and nip it in the bud now and start fixing it this year? Or am I going to let this become part of my identity for years and years to come with no off-ramp, with no strategy, with no knowledge of when does this change? When am I going to put in the time and the effort and the discipline to make this change? Now, I want you to know, no matter who you are, almost no matter who you are, you can lose all that body fat, get back to your old level of fitness and then some. Okay, you can absolutely accomplish the world almost no matter who you are. There's very few limitations on that. But you do need to the first thing you got to do is you got to psychologically tell yourself that you're going to do this. And you can't be afraid of it. You can't let your nerves get the better of you. It's a bit like with athletes, and I don't coach athletes much anymore, but when I used to, sometimes if they got injured, we could build them back up, but they felt really uncomfortable about getting back out and playing their sport with vigor because they were so afraid of getting injured again. And I don't even think it was the pain of the injury so much. It was almost the mental humiliation for some of the people I worked with, where it was like, gosh, I really choked. I injured myself. I didn't perform well. All these different things cascaded. And now I've got to get back into that when I don't feel as strong as I used to be. And this is where we've got to embrace the mind over matter mentality. Okay, you've got to be able to push yourself or hire a coach who's going to help push you. And I hope this video helps push you. But we've got to be able to push you back into who you were, into the fighter you were that got you into good shape in the first place. Because this COVID weight gain is not going to go away on its own. I'm telling you, the longer you hold on to it, the harder it's going to be to get rid of. For emotional reasons, because it becomes more of your identity, and for physiological reasons as well. We have got to get you back on that track. Now, what I'm going to suggest is if you were training 3, 4, 5 days a week before, don't start at that level yet. If you feel nervous and uncomfortable about returning to fitness or to trying to negate the weight that you've gained, then start small. Let's start at 2 sessions a week for 15 minutes each, and that's it. And then just tell yourself, I'm not necessarily going to lose weight from that. That's not enough time to lose much weight, but I'm doing something better. I'm preparing the mind. I'm preparing my joints, my muscles. My heart. I'm starting to rebuild my physicality before I really get into weight loss. Think about that old quote. I'm going to forget which president said this. I think it was George Washington, but it might have been Lincoln. I think it was Lincoln. He said, if you have 6 hours to chop down a tree, spend 5 hours sharpening the axe. And this is important in this aspect of fitness because you don't need to start losing weight right away. That's not necessary, but you do need to start sharpening your mind and your tools, your joints, your muscles, your movement science, your mind-body connection, your discipline, just the ability to set an alarm or whatever you have to do to say, this is the time of day, to put in your calendar. This is the time of day that I'm going to get this workout done. And no matter what else is going on, this is the time for me to take care of my body and my longevity. And so even if you're not going to start burning fat for weeks or maybe even months, let's start sharpening the axe now because it's so critical to your long term. You're not going to feel good about yourself if you keep carrying around the excess weight. And if the weight is truly adipose, where it's harmful to your health and not just unsightly, but actually harmful to your health and improving or increasing your cardiovascular risk, then it's certainly going to get the best of you one way or the other. And you deserve better than that. Okay. Everybody watching this video deserves better than that. So listen, I've got a couple of useful tools in the description. I've got a free link to my very short 10-question quiz asking you what your weight loss methods are or are going to be once you involve yourself in weight loss. Take that quiz now and see how good your methods are. The quiz will tell you, and I can contact you and we can have a follow-up call one-on-one, and I can chat with you for a few minutes about your answers and my suggestions for things you can do differently. The main thing I'm going to tell you all is you need a top coach. You really do. It's worth the time and the money. Get a top health coach, personal trainer, get someone who really knows their stuff. And ideally someone who can work with you a bit as a life coach as well, whether they have that certification or not, someone who can really inspire you and remind you of who you don't want to be and who you do want to be. So anyway, everybody, I am always here to help. Please comment down below with your questions or feel free to reach out to me privately. I'm looking forward to your health and your weight loss and your wellness success.